Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me? No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon when it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. I do want to hop into this. SEO is a big deal.
Cool.
Start at the beginning.
All right.
Do your thing explaining SEO nuts and bolts to begin with.
Totally. So yeah, I'm pretty well known for teaching SEO for photographers and search engine optimization. That's what SEO stands for. Pretty much we're trying to organically, so not pay, to get traffic to our site from search engines. Most of that's going to be Google, though YouTube is growing, and that's a great source of traffic for some photographers. Pinterest is a search engine. People do get quite a bit of Pinterest traffic. There's lots of strategies there that I don't really deal with, but in like the nuts and bolts for me is I'm trying to optimize my website so Google thinks that it's authoritative and relevant information for people looking for wedding photographers.
So you're very intentional.
Yep.
And specific about that.
Yep.
And I'm guessing that there are all kinds of things that one can do.
Yeah, it's endless for sure.
I mean, it's search engine optimization, but there's also optimization that you can do with your website, different things you can do with your website, just your website, I'm talking about right now specifically. Can you go through some of that?
Yeah,
like
totally.
maybe some things that somebody can do this
like right
afternoon.
now.
They
Totally.
see this and they're like, oh, I can do that and I can do that.
For sure. Yeah. The first thing I recommend everybody does if they're at all interested in SEO is to verify their site with Google Search Console. This is going to give you the data straight from Google on what terms people are searching that have your site show up in search results, which pages of your website are included in search results, if there's any errors when Google tries to crawl your website and figure it out, things like that. So it's really valuable data, but they don't start collecting it until you verify your site.
Is that right? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so you have to verify it. Otherwise, like if you verify a 10-year-old site that's never been verified today, you're not going to have any data. So you need to verify the site. So that's first. Once you have that, I think the first step is typically like the basics of keyword research. And there's some free tools. There's one called Uber Suggest. And there's another tool called Keywords Everywhere it's not free anymore. They just changed that, but it's like $4 or $5. And that's going to tell you, basically free.
Yeah, close to free.
Yeah. And that's going to tell you very broadly how much search volume, so how many people are searching for the term per month and what kind of competition it has. And so you're going to try to look at your specialty and for your area and decide what your main target topic or term is for your homepage. That's probably like the first things people should kind of start with.
Okay.
Once you have that, you want to make sure that the page title of your homepage, so every website platform gives you the ability to change that page title. You want that target term to be included in that page title on the homepage, but not included on every other page of your website, which is a very, very common mistake.
Just the homepage?
Just the homepage.
No other pages.
Exactly. So for my site, I have Portland Wedding Photographer, and that's only the title of my homepage, but I don't include that exact term anywhere else on my website as far as page titles go. A lot of website platforms, like Squarespace or WordPress, they automatically add your site's, site title to the page title of every page, which is super annoying and not good for SEO.
So you have to go through and get rid of those.
Yeah. So typically it's one setting change, but it's very important. And
wow.
I see this one on 80% of the websites I work on.
That was worth the price of admission for some people right there.
For sure. Yeah.
Honestly, right? Like,
totally.
Because it's a default, probably automated setting.
Yep.
Right? That you need to go in and uncheck and then make sure
Exactly.
That title isn't included with any other pages outside of the homepage.
Yep, that's it. And but the problem that causes is that every page is going to be somewhat optimized for that main term, and Google and other search engines are going to have to try to figure out which page is actually the best page for that term.
Right.
And you just don't want to make them have to guess, or
you don't want it on them.
No, because and they mess it up.
The whole purpose.
For sure.
Right.
So that one's huge. I think if I had one other thing to change that's affecting most photography websites, honestly, it's like the size of images that they're using on their website, maybe the number of images.
Okay, I get the size piece.
Sure.
Because I see all the time myself. You can see that people are, uploading thumbnails for what they should be using, for bigger spreads or bigger imagery, and then vice versa.
Yeah.
Where they throw a 16 meg JPEG on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway,
for sure.
Size makes sense to me. And if you need work on sizing your images, just look at pixels, width and height.
Yeah.
And,
I think
base it
that's
on that.
For sure.
But number of images, that I don't understand
totally.
that piece.
So like one thing that Google's already taking this into consideration quite heavily, but they're making signals even this week that page speed and how quickly your site loads on mobile especially is going to be even more important in 2021. So it's already important, but it's going to be even worse. And so what you have to kind of realize is that even photographer sites now, I couldn't say this 2 years ago, but even photographer sites, the majority of the traffic I'm seeing is on mobile. It's close, but it's probably 50-50.
But it's trending more towards mobile probably as the years go by. Everything's trending mobile, right?
It's like the whole internet's been mobile, like majority mobile for probably 3 or 4 years. But photography sites, I'd always look at people's data and it would be like 60-40 or 30-70. But now it's like 50-50 and
it's swinging, right?
It really is. And so people on mobile, like you're on a phone, you don't always have the best connection. Like 5G isn't really a thing yet. Every photo they download is going to be, that's extra data, it's extra time. And so it's an issue. It depends how the images are served. There are good website platforms out there that lazy load, which lazy loading of 5 years ago was just like super annoying, where like you'd go to somebody's website and you'd see like those like loading wheels as you were scrolling.
Right.
Now lazy loading is really smart. So like they can sense when you're scrolling and they're loading the photos just outside of the viewport. So like as you scroll, like they just appear and it's seamless.
So is that more tied into loading in the background where
exactly,
before you're even scrolling, it's something's happening in the background where images are being loaded almost in anticipation of you doing what you're going to do.
For sure. And so like most browsers have this built in now. Like Chrome added this a few months ago. They're really good at it. So like that's a good step, because that means you can have a page with 100 photos. And when the person loads that page, it only loads the 5 that are visible. And then as they scroll, it will load. And so that's a nice way to give the option for users to keep scrolling if they're actually interested in the content, but they don't have to load 100 photos to even see the page.
But let's assume that those photos are sized properly, right?
Sure.
Because, obviously if they're not sized properly, that has its own set of issues, both one way and the other. If they're too small, you have issues. If they're too big, you have issues. Let's say they're all sized right. You're throwing out the number 100. Is that arbitrary, or are you saying that meaning that 100 images is in a sweet spot for a gallery, or does this even exist where you're like, you know what, with the type of sizes that these images should typically be, you're looking at a window of 20 to 40 images in a gallery. Does that exist?
Yeah. To an extent. I would say if I had to make a claim like that, I would say that maybe 15 to 20 images is probably all you need on a single page, in almost any circumstance. Obviously there's like proofing galleries and things that seeing grids of lots of images, probably necessary. But for
when it's necessary, that's one thing. But as far as SEO goes, I'm wondering, does Google take that into account? Obviously, again, not size wise, but number wise, does Google take it into account? Where is Google like, oh, there's 137 images on that page.
Yeah,
we're not going to push that. Is that a thing?
In my testing, it's hard. I have tested this exact thing and I've had somewhat inconclusive results, but I would say that trending lower than most photographers are typically putting on like a blog post type page is better. And that 15 to 25 range is where I see good results. Okay. I'm not saying that you can't have 60 photos, but they should probably be lazy loaded.
Right. I understand.
But where I see the biggest issue with this is typically home pages. And photographers love having the sliders on the top of their homepage showing portfolio. And I've watched screen recordings. I've looked at like user heat maps. I've done a lot of testing on this, and potential clients do not sit there and scroll through the homepage sliders at all. Like almost at all.
Doesn't happen.
No.
Right.
And so people that have 20, 30, 40 photos in those sliders, especially if they're not loading like lazy loaded or something,
right?
It's craziness.
It's brutal.
Yeah. And so removing those in general is better, or just having 3 photos, something like that. Show people that you do some work, but like the real content is going to be as they scroll the page.
Right.
I've definitely seen ranking increases and huge speed increases from getting rid of those sliders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you don't know what that is, then you probably haven't incorporated it. So don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
What sort of other SEO tips can people incorporate?
For sure. This one's a little bit harder to explain in a podcast, but a short explanation is that you really need to watch the number of pages that you have indexed in Google, and you can check that in Search Console with the coverage report. Or you can do a simple Google search for the word site and then a colon and then your domain name. So for me, it would be site:dylanmhowell.com. And that returns every page that Google has indexed on my domain.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's pretty fun little trick.
Okay. Man, you got a lot of really cool info. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. And so for my site, that's generally around about 200 pages. And then you can look at your Search Console, and you can look at the performance report and see how many pages are people actually visiting from Google search in like a 3-month window. And you want that to be as close to the same number as possible, where every page you have indexed, people are actually interested in visiting. I've seen some really bad sites where it's like, I think the most extreme site I've ever worked on, it had 3 million pages, and it's a huge e-commerce site, but they had some issues. And then out of that, about 5 to 10,000 of those were actually getting any traffic at all. So there was just this like huge
and the rest weren't.
0. Yeah. So on photography sites, I see that very often in the thousands, where a photographer might have 5,000 to 7,000 pages, which you might think like, that sounds unreal. But it's generally a mix of technical issues, single images being indexed as their own page, things like that, or people that used kind of outdated SEO practices like overly tagging their posts, which each tag they added would create tag archives, things like that would add a lot of bloated pages.
I wanted to touch on that a little bit. The outdated pieces.
Yeah.
What about like, and I'm not going to say any of this right.
Nice.
But weren't there things where you would like embed keywords? Like I would use white text on a white page because the text would be there, and Google's spiders would find it. Like I'm using terms from way back in 2014, probably.
Totally.
I don't know, but like what sort of things are essentially useless or outdated or obsolete right now?
Yeah, that's a good example. That that technique was like early 2000s, mid 2000s.
That was even 15 years ago.
For sure.
I was even off by saying way back in 2014. Nice. Okay, keep going.
For
oh my
sure.
gosh.
In general, Google's really good at finding keyword stuffing and either disregarding it or kind of penalizing you for it.
Is that right? Okay. So you can actually do some things to incur consequence.
Yes,
from Google.
for sure.
Okay.
So if you have like a blog post that's just targeting one term, and maybe it's a certain wedding venue that you've shot at, and it's just not ranking, and you think it should, you might want to look at this. But not using those target terms too often in the text is an easy way to improve your results. I'm trying to think of some other major issues there that I've seen people mess up. In general, the whole using tags at all for SEO is outdated.
Okay, so I wanted, that's what for triggered me asking this. Tags are not a thing anymore?
They're decent for user experience if you have it set up well. Really, like tags and categories.
Qualifiers there.
Exactly, there are. And so what I mean there is that if you're blogging all of your weddings and you create a tag for fall, and on your website's theme, it displays the tags and they're able to click on fall and see all of your fall weddings, that's awesome. It's still probably not a great page for people to land on from Google, unless you've built a custom template for how your tag archives are displayed.
Sure.
And maybe you have like more text that says like, hey, here's my favorite fall weddings. Here's some things to think about when you're getting married in the fall. And just more information to the user. If you just
which most people haven't done, aren't going to do.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean it can't be done, and that some people aren't doing it. But for the most part, that it's not a thing because it's not a thing.
Exactly.
Right. Like you have to jump up.
You have to be pretty technical, or have a developer that's technical. And so that. The way that most people use tags is they're like, hey, I want to rank for these terms. I'm just going to start throwing these in the tags. Does a lot more harm than good. And you're not going to see results. So in general, I think the biggest takeaway there is that you need to think more about the user and are you actually bringing value to the user? And I don't think you are by adding tags, but if you do want to rank for those terms, creating actually useful content, maybe writing a different page or post about that topic, that's going to actually rank. So
now you've mentioned a couple times like how things change, and we were just talking about what was outdated, but you're like, oh, even this week, this has come out. Where do you even get, like, how do you even stay up on that? Like how does one, because what I wouldn't want to do is go through the trouble of learning about a bunch of this stuff and then implementing a bunch of things, and then discovering 2 years later that a month after I did it all, it was obsolete or it was outdated, right? Like that's a thing these days in general, like technologically.
Everything's moving so
you're
fast.
Like, oh, you've been doing that wrong for 18 months and that's why you haven't gotten any visitors to, or whatever. So where does one go to keep their finger on the pulse of the ever-changing SEO rules and regulations, so to speak?
Totally. This is hard because it's hard.
I thought it would be.
Yeah. The main source of the best reputable information we can get is straight from Google's blog, and they have a really great webmaster team. But they also have their interest is not always perfectly aligned with us trying to get the most search engine traffic. So they might fib sometimes, or they might.
Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. They might just like push the truth a little bit.
Tell me why. You must know. You must have a theory why.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but like,
are they really out to get? Are they really just out? all these nameless big tech corps. Are they really just out to get us?
They are. No, and I understand their points, and it's hard. They just, their official positions might not be 100% based in the truth and what's actually going on, but it's the best source of most information.
And
Outside of that,
it's almost like they got us and they know it.
yeah, for sure, 100%. I mean, the macro world with Google right now is really challenging. I mean, for us as photographers, we're putting out a lot of content, and it's ranking in Google results because it's what users are looking for. But more and more, have you ever seen what are called featured snippets? So you do a Google search, and Google kind of tells you the answer in the results without you having to click through to any website.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
cool.
That happens a lot.
It does more and more.
Yes, it
And
does.
So now what they're doing is we're going to all the work to create this information. We're putting it on our websites that we're paying to host. And then they're scraping our information and they're showing it in their results without people ever having to visit our site.
You don't even go to a site.
For sure. So like if I look up like Google stock price of something, and there's
Right.
so many millions of terms, I get that information without ever visiting Yahoo Finance or whatever.
You don't have to go anywhere because it's within the search itself,
Exactly.
within the search results itself. That's called a snippet.
Yeah. Featured snippet.
Yeah, see them all the time.
Totally. And so those are growing rapidly. And so that's Google kind of encroaching a little bit on, missed revenue for publishers of all types. Anybody putting
It
out
sounds
content.
like it's Google screwing everybody over
Yeah.
and just
For
being
sure.
like, you don't have to go there because you've already gone to Google.
Exactly.
And we have the information that you need. Because they'll even, I have noticed,
Mhm.
Dylan, that if you ask a question, they'll give you different versions of your question that you can hit a drop down,
Yep,
and then
for
there's
sure.
the answer for that question.
Totally.
Right?
Yep. And it's endless. Like if you keep clicking those boxes, you can get hundreds of those answers.
It sounds like something Dr. Evil would do.
For sure. So,
Mhm.
they still have the probability of people clicking on ads from that result, but we're not
Yeah,
seeing a
because
piece of
the
that.
ads are at the top.
For sure. Yeah. And there's ads at
ads
the
are
bottom.
right
There's
there.
ads It's-
You see ads and snippets, and you don't see anything real. Like sometimes I'll just scroll all the way down
Yeah.
and go to like page 4.
Yeah. Just get away from the ads. And
Get
everything
away
else.
from everything.
Yeah, totally. That's hard. So us as content creators, we're not getting the fair shake right now.
No, we're
And it's
not.
I don't see it improving either.
No, it's not going to get better, is it?
Yeah.
So the best source on how to keep up with what's happening with
Kind
SEO
of Google. Yeah.
is Google.
To an extent.
Sounds like a conflict of interest. I'm just
it
going to
is.
throw that out there.
Yeah. I would say there are a few SEO news sites, but the
Yeah,
quality
don't you
is
have any third parties that are kind of like
Yeah.
on the fringe that like do all the work for you, like an
Kinda.
underground?
Yeah, it's just not great. I have a Twitter list. I can share my Twitter list of people to follow. But
Okay.
that's as good as it gets for me right now.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
well, but that's a lot of times that's where the good stuff comes. You know,
For
you
sure.
have these people that are kind of doing the dirty work because
that's what
they're
it
the
takes.
ones in the know, like yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys are the ones in the know. You guys are the people that us regular normal Joes have to go to.
For sure. And it takes, we have expensive tools that are tracking right now. I think I'm tracking a few hundred different websites. So tracking their rankings on a daily basis. So I can look for changes in different sites and different types of content and different specialties and all of that.
You're like independent, unbiased investigators.
Exactly. We try.
You are the people that we need.
For sure. And then testing all the time. So we set up test sites. We push theories and push the limits of what we can do to try to rank those test sites. And sometimes we get them delisted or blocked or banned.
Is that right?
Yeah, but we're always just trying to see like what's actually working. And then we have our own sites that we use as like little guinea pigs.
Right, of course.
Which is always fun. And then we have client sites that we're much like more subdued with and play it safe, but try to get some good rankings for.
Where can people go? So do you offer SEO services, right?
A little bit.
A tiny bit.
Tiny bit. So yeah, I have a company called Fuel Your Photos. Me and my partner Corey. And we mostly work at education for SEO. So we strongly believe that photographers are going to get the best results from SEO if they have at least basic understanding. Without that, it's very hard for them to hire out the actual SEO services without getting screwed or having less than great results.
Sure.
So once they have that knowledge, they can pick what types of services to hire out, or if they need to at all, or if they can do it themselves. And we see the majority of like the best results from that. We do allow our students to hire us on like an hourly basis, and we work with them on that. And then we have a few select like retainer positions that we have clients on. So
where can people go to find all of that and your photo work, and where do people go to find you?
Totally. So we have a Facebook group. It's called Feel Your Photos. I think there's 18,000 photographers in there right now trying to learn SEO. It's awesome. So join that, super free. Our website is feelyourphotos.com. And we have a free SEO guide that's really in depth, and you can just start reading. We also have a free challenge that's a 7-day SEO course that every morning it sends you a new video with one lesson for the day, one step to take to improve your SEO. And that's feelyourphotos.com/challenge, which is awesome.
I like that.
Yeah. And then my personal website, if you want to see my photography work, is dylanmhowell.com. And I'm on all the socials at Dylan M. Howell.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. Again, this is one of those things that it's kind of like whether you know about it or whether you realize it or not, this is important.
Yeah. And like, we're all kind of sitting around right now.
Those letters are a big deal. That, SEO, whatever,
Totally.
SEO, or SEO, what the heck's SEO? It's important. It's a fact that it's important, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been the largest part of my marketing channel for my business, like pretty much since I started. Obviously the first year or two, it was getting going. It was like relationships and a few paid ads and stuff like that. But SEO from like year 2 through 10 has been the majority of my inquiries.
That's where business comes from.
Yeah.
As a result of that.
Yeah. It's been good.
Well, I wish you a good day, and I appreciate the time and the effort that you have given me in doing this. And maybe our paths will cross someday in person rather than just over a Zoom call.
For sure. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thanks. Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right there. It's there somewhere.